Right, here we are. Podcast number one of many, hopefully. Not even sure what to call the podcast.
You have ideas?
Well, we had the humane with an AI kind of in the
Oh,
middle.
yeah.
So we're trying to play on some words like how do we make AI and humanity still come together to be positive and not
Yeah,
scary?
yeah, that's cool. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't
I
know.
imagine there's a lot of AI podcasts now, right? Like, it must be the big
Yeah,
upcoming. So you
and that's
want
going to be
AI?
part of the challenge is definitely how do we differentiate, right? So for us, it's we want to focus on AI adoption. How do you get started? Not just hyping it all up, but talking about the realities.
Yeah,
So I don't know the real AI feel. I don't. So we've got to figure out what we're going to call it. So we'll start this pod being unnamed. Um, Delighted to have Mike Mandis, co-CEO of Oxygen Advisors up in Auckland in New Zealand with me. Thank you, Mike, for joining.
thanks for having me.
We're gonna again. This is semi-scripted. We're gonna have a good conversation about the realities of AI in accountants. You're obviously a tech-focused accountancy practice. We'll ask you to give some background. So hopefully, we're going to come up with some discussion points. We've got some questions, but it should be a free-flowing conversation. And yeah, just really, really keen to kind of dig into technology, specifically AI, specifically for small businesses and accountants, and see where we go. But we've got a few warm up questions to start with. So, and this is a challenge for many people in your profession. How do you describe your job at a dinner party, and what's your follow up to keep the conversation going once you tell them?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely not. I'm not leading with I'm an accountant. If I don't want to talk to someone, that's it. That's what I tell them, right? Like, oh, I'm like,
Yeah.
you're sitting next to someone and you like don't really feel like having a chat. You're like, oh, I'm an accountant, and it just shuts down the conversation
Nice.
straight away. At a dinner party, like I'm a fractional CFO for a group of tech startups. Like that, hopefully, is enough to get people engaged. Yeah, like, and if they want to like talk more about what I do, then I talk a bit more about Oxygen, like because that kind of sounds like I'm just one person, whereas Oxygen is a group of 30 odd people today, and we support like 100 startups, and so it's much bigger than just me being a fractional CFO. But yeah, that's fractional CFO for a group of tech startups is how I describe it.
Nice. And so, do they then? What bit do they query? Do they query what does fractional mean or virtual CFO? Like, what's the first
Yeah,
round of questions?
I mean, and even virtual CFOs gets a bit muddied. You kind of wind up with every man and his dog calling themselves virtual CFO. So yeah, probably. I mean, the way to describe it in layman's terms is a group of startups share me as their CFO because it doesn't make sense for them to have a full-time CFO, but they do need someone who knows what they're doing in the space, and so they can share the cost of me and a whole finance team across like with say 10 or 12 other startups. And so it's cost efficient. You get someone who really knows what they're doing, high caliber person, but you also are not footing the bill for a full finance team because if you've raised like, don't know, $3 million in capital, it makes absolutely no sense to hire 3 finance people who aren't going to build your product.
Yeah, makes sense. So, give us a bit of a flavor of how you got to where you are. What was the journey for Mike to get to co-CEO of Oxygen?
Yeah, I mean, so if you go right back, I trained as an accountant, but like many people who follow that profession, realized that that's definitely really didn't want to work in an accounting firm. I started my career at Fonterra, like buying and selling companies as in M&A. I moved to the UK. I was the head of finance for a travel tech startup. Realized I love tech, and when I came back to New Zealand, I really wanted to work in tech, and I didn't really know like what existed here. And that's where I met Matt, the founder of Oxygen, and everything just sort of went from there. And so I've been here for almost 5 years now, and yeah, been supporting New Zealand startups for the last 5 years as their CFO.
Nice. And so,
Yeah, it's the
that kind of
co-CEO part.
passion. Where did the passion part kind of kick in? Because you kind of, as you said, a lot of people start off as an accountant, either realize they don't want to be a management accountant or whatever. So, why do you now do what you do when you kind of thought maybe that wasn't what you wanted to do at the beginning?
Yeah, I just like you don't even know it exists when you're a young person entering profession. Like I didn't even know like at university I didn't even know that studying accounting. Didn't know that I wanted to be an auditor or something. It's not like I studied accounting thinking about that. It made sense to me like the numbers side, and I was really interested in businesses, and so that's why I studied it. And then coming out, it was just this broad question of where can I like apply my skills that is actually interesting. Tech, I think I've always had like an interest in entrepreneurship and technology by virtue of being interested in entrepreneurship, as they go hand in hand today. So yeah, my father was an entrepreneur. I grew up watching him build a business. I think that's like a lot of my why of what I do today is that I want to help entrepreneurs. I also am one by virtue of running Oxygen. But it's fun to wear both hats. It's like you get to help people. I saw how hard it was for my dad running a company. It was a manufacturing business, completely different, but just seeing like how much the ups and downs, like how tough it can be, how exciting it can be, and kind of wanting to be on the journey with people, and I guess supporting people through it as well.
So if you weren't an accountant, what would you be? What's the alternative sliding doors version of Mike's career and life?
Yeah, maybe if I'd gotten in, I think I applied for Startup Accelerator as a graduate, and maybe my co-founder wasn't as interested as me, and it just fizzled. But maybe in another world, I would have actually like just gone and done my own thing right from the get-go. I don't know. Like that's a good question. It's hard for me to imagine another life, but I love what I do now. I feel like I've really like landed on my feet here, and I love it. And if I compare back to say the Fonterra days, it was, it's not that motivating to get out of bed in the morning and I don't know, go help sell milk powder. But today it's like, I'm pumped every day. I'm working on something interesting. I'm like, it's busy, but it's awesome.
So that getting out of bed stuff, right? Because that's a challenge, I think, for many people, no matter what profession you're in. How have you managed to get to that point? How is it because Oxygen and what you do and the clients you take on, it's kind of problems you're going to solve? Like, what is that bit that you think other either accounting firms or virtual CFOs, like how have you managed to get to that point? Because that's going to be a point that many people are envious of when you jump out of bed and you're excited to get to work.
Yeah. I think like for me, it was always just following in my career what I was interested in. Like I didn't steer, like I really, like for example, audit never appealed. I never chased a path in audit. And so constantly following what actually excites you is just like, that's step one, especially if you're a young person. That's advice to any young person, is just do what interests you. Like served me super well. And then especially as I'm getting a little bit older, I have a daughter now. I guess career, when you're in your early, like in your 20s, you're thinking, oh, I just need to do things that are moving me forward. When you get to this stage, you actually need to do something, like this is your life. Like you're going to be doing this probably for a long time. And what you do today is probably going to shape what you're going to be doing for the next 10, 20 years. So find something you're actually, I guess like purpose and the why behind it that you just genuinely believe in. Like think about what excites you, why you do what you do, and go see if you can match that with your skill set. And if you can't, maybe it's time to look at a different skill set. I don't know. I mean, it's hard, right? Because like people are trained as a lawyer, and maybe it's hard to apply law to whatever your passion is. I don't know.
So obviously we're going to focus on technology. You guys are in a privileged position because your clients are also technology companies.
Yeah.
So how do you think that actually Oxygen, because of the types of clients you've got and maybe the type of accountants you've got and the team, how do you consider then technology, right? Because you're in you got a different perspective to many other accountants. So it'd be good, I think, to share how you see technology, how within the team you kind of encourage that. So just give us a bit of an insight into that technology lens that you've managed to achieve.
Yeah. I mean, we embrace technology heavily is probably the starting point. We're a pretty young team as well. And by virtue of just having a lot of young people tend to be really connected to what technology exists and what's available. And so that immediately makes us tech-led. Like we'll get, I'll have some, like one of our more junior accountants will come in and they've like, oh, I found this way to integrate this, like my Stripe with my Xero with like this in-between piece of software. And it's something I would have never thought of doing, but because they are just like interested and passionate and well connected to what exists in the technology space, they've found a solution. And then we're like, for us, serving 100 clients and half of them have this exact same problem, we'd be idiots not to roll it out across, every single client who has that, because it saves an hour of time every month for every client who has this issue. We just save 50 hours through the use of technology. Why would you not adapt technology in that situation? And yeah, to be efficient and be like, we're fractional, and so like for that to be super cost effective, we have to be embracing technology. If we're not, our clients are getting a bad deal.
Mm. And so how do you have you had to build that culture of experimentation and open-mindedness, or has it come naturally because of the types of team that you've got?
I'd say like it definitely comes up naturally to some degree. Like we serve the tech ecosystem. We have people who are really passionate about technology. We also like the people building this company built it. I'm building this company because I wanted to build it. I'm excited about what we're doing, and I really didn't want, like, I could have maybe worked at a bank or worked, don't know, some place. Like, bank is like the most boring thing I could think of. But I could have worked somewhere like that, and maybe it's like a lucrative career, but it doesn't excite me. And so that we're building something that we want to build, and so I guess like the people at the top and the people who are building the company are very supportive of technology. So it's kind of in our DNA. I'd say as we're growing, it's becoming more important to actively foster it. Like as you get bigger and bigger, it becomes harder to keep innovating and stay on top of whatever the new tech is, because you kind of get established systems and processes, you get more layers, a little bit harder to implement, like classic problem of becoming bigger. So yeah, probably it's early stage, we just naturally did it. Now we're trying to foster a culture around technology, and one of the key values for people, and when we hire, we look for people with this, is people who are curious, and by curiosity, I mean they're like, they see a problem and like they don't just go, oh cool, I'll just use that same Excel sheet workaround. I'll actually look a layer deep when I've got a bit of spare time and see like, oh, maybe that could be automated. Like, yeah, maybe there's a way to do this better.
So it's kind of interesting for those more established firms, maybe they don't, the profile or the demographic of their team is a little bit different to yours. What kind of tips could you give I don't want to use the word legacy, but maybe, a more legacy kind of accounting practice?
Yeah.
If you were to be parachuted into an organization like that, what would you do? Like, what would you begin to change, look for? How would you, kind of view that challenge?
Yeah, I mean, technology also improves your margin, like 100%. It makes you more efficient. And so no matter how young or old your firm is, you definitely care about making good margin and like translating into the bottom line. So you can easily relate it back to that. Like you can put a value on a piece of technology, right? You can say it costs us $1,000 a year. It saves us $10,000 a year. Yes, we're gonna use that piece of tech. So yeah, I'd probably translate it into margin. What else would I do in a more established firm?
What about the behavioral change stuff, right? So have you're considering technologies all the time. Have you come across a point where some of the technologies have been some resistance from the team? Maybe the change was a bit too much. Maybe they didn't quite buy into it. Is there any scenarios like that you've experienced that would then translate to a different kind of firm? Like what lessons have you had through that human, with a human lens?
Yeah, I mean, yes, like it's rolling out anything. Like people are naturally somewhat resistant to change, and I'd say we're probably less resistant than some, but people are just naturally resistant to it, right? They're like this thing works. Why would I change the thing that's working? Behavior wise, like it's about getting buy-in. Like anything, you need people to buy into the solution. But overall, like tech makes your life easier. Like so, it's making your life easier and your job easier should be an easy sell. I think you just need to relate it to, you try and drive people to the outcome, not the pain of implementation. You're kind of thinking about end state here, and trying to get people excited and bought into what you're doing. Maybe if you're a much bigger firm and you've got to corral a lot of people, you might do it a bit slower, or you wait for a piece of technology to just have a little bit more traction and some proof points, so you are more confident that it will work and deliver the outcomes. You can get a testimonial from another customer on that product who can kind of validate that this will probably work for you too. Like if it's an accounting firm that serves similar sized companies and similar kind of market to you, and they use it, well, it'd be interesting to find a reason why you couldn't.
So, I mean, you guys are looking at technologies of all shapes and sizes, right? As you said, you've got that view of finding technology to solve problems, drive margins, so on and so forth. So what are you seeing in the market now? Like when we talk to accountants, they say there's just so much out there. It's kind of, where do we start? We're getting inundated all the time with technology, and especially obviously recently with AI type technology. So kind of, what are you seeing? What are you looking at? Kind of if you were a accounting tech evangelist, like what would you be kind of saying is now and what's tomorrow, and maybe what does the longer term look like?
Yeah, I mean, AI is like the classic. It's everywhere at the moment, right? And people know because ChatGPT has completely popularized AI. It's become, it's like my dad's talking about AI now. It's, it's not just early adopters anymore. And my dad, like, to his credit, he's quite interested in technology, but like, yeah, he's, when he's talking about AI, it's mainstream. And so it's everywhere. It's super hard to know because all the products in the space are really new. It's like there isn't much of that traction, proof points, kind of stuff that you can lean on. But I do think if you don't adopt something, like if you go back, I don't know how many years it is now, 15, 20 years, and you look at Xero and what that did for the accounting profession, like people were doing GST returns before that by hand. And it was like you could charge someone $400 for a GST return. Like simple GST return, right? Because it was a time-consuming process. Xero makes it so easy now that, I mean, maybe someone will pay you $400, but anyone who's savvy will not pay you $400 for a GST return, and you need to adapt. You just like, because if you don't keep up with it, you're gonna fall behind. And if your business is predicated on $400 GST returns, you're not going to survive very long. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what AI is to me now. Is we need to start adopting it and figure out a way to sustainably build it into our processes. I don't think we're going to change what we're doing structurally, but we need to find ways to use AI to make what we're doing, either make it better or make it faster. Like those are kind of the two, like more efficient or like high quality.
Yeah. So, and how do you then start thinking about how do you prioritize? How do you start thinking through the problems or the tasks to kind of target, right? Because in every organization, there's a lot of manual work. There's probably places for technology. And so a lot of people are thinking, well, how do I get to pick the right thing to start with? And how do you think about that yourself?
Yeah. And probably one other thing to add to what I was just talking about, as I was thinking, as you were asking that question, is there's quite a lot of companies who are just shoving AI into their product now. And like that's what I'd be avoiding. And yeah, because that feels quite like a lot of use cases. It's quite unnatural. I'm kind of looking for a genuine AI solution if I'm going to put something in place. But where I start, like you mentioned, manual processes. That's like number one for me. Like any cut out of manual processes, all the low value stuff is where like I'd love AI to just solve that and to not do it. Because no one's excited to, I don't know, manually reconcile some complicated transaction list or no one's passionate about that. It's not like my team love doing it. It's not a value add to our clients. It's just something we have to do. So anything like that, 100%. Same sort of thing with just, even if we are reconciling, say we're reconciling off the transactions, if we can make it, can we make it more accurate through AI? Can we run AI processes over it, and with all that processing power, can it tell you where there's probably an error or where something's been miscoded? Like that seems like a good use case for AI. You get high quality output. Seems like a pretty low cost overlay to put in there to get a much better result. And yeah, maybe avoid some liability or some risk. So yeah, those are probably like the starting points. There is also like advisory kind of AI, like things that are at the more senior level in an organization. For me, that's kind of a supplementary exercise. Like maybe it will help you write, I don't know, commentary for the monthly report a little bit better or a little bit faster. I do struggle, and maybe this is like my bias, that I struggle to see like a CFO getting replaced easily by AI, but I definitely could see like the wider accounting stack. And like again, if you look back at what Xero has done to the accounting profession, it's made it way more forward-looking. It's because all the backwards-looking stuff is just getting easier because technology is just speeding it up and meaning it's way less manual. And so it's hopefully it's making accountants much more value add than more like, I don't know, processing.
So, given how quickly things are moving, right? So maybe it's taken a decade from the cloudification of some of that, accounting to now changing business models and changing expectations. Given how fast the technology is moving right now, we can't go into a decade into the future because it's just way too far. But even if you go 5 years into the future, what do you think either a fractional CFO, advisory, accounting business, what do you think it looks like? So how do people need to start thinking about the future and working towards it?
Yeah, like 100%. I think, yeah, if you think 5 years, like that's actually quite a long time in the span of technology.
Yeah.
You think about Moore's law, like, yeah, you should be like processing is just getting faster and faster. I'd imagine, like, I mean, 5 years, companies who have been adopting this stuff from day one should have found their modern tech stack, and should have, yeah, probably the more like simple task. Like if you think about all of what a bookkeeper, accounts assistant does, that probably is like prime target for AI to come in and solve. Because it's heavily data driven work. Like it's lots of crunching through data. Like you're going through an inbox, processing manually all the stuff in that inbox, and then trying to get your out, like turn it into some sort of output. Could probably be like, I saw what I don't know, the new release of Chat GPT. I don't know when that came out, but I saw someone put one of my clients put in a bill into that, and it like spits out all the information that's in the bill out of a PDF. It's super impressive. Like that could 100% be replacing. I don't know how that turns into like your virtual bookkeeper, but yeah, it's super impressive. So like that probably is the starting point, and then probably the other side of it is like when you're doing that value add kind of service, having that, I guess, co-pilot relationship with AI. So like as a CFO, how can I be supplementing and really, because what people really want from me as a fractional CFO is insights or advisory. Like they actually want insights. They don't want to pay for someone to tell them, oh, you should be capitalizing this expense, not expensing it. They actually want someone who's like, oh, have you thought about like your margins are reducing over time because your hosting bill is scaling faster. Your COGS are scaling faster than your revenue as a percentage. Like what's going on here? Let's dig into it. That's what they want to figure out. And that's the kind of thing that I think AI could definitely be picking up for you. Like it could be looking for patterns like that and helping you identify them way faster than you could do it by looking, once a month or whatever at the reporting.
So what therefore is your dream state as a virtual CFO? Like, if this technology can do all of those things, right? Well, where you're living your best life as a virtual CFO, what does the dream state look like? Like what's the future jump out of bed Mike doing in 5 years' time?
I mean, the biggest problem, and I'm sure lots of people any accountant or professional service provider listening to this will feel this pain, is like as you scale your company, you are selling time for money, and as you scale your revenue, you basically need to hire more people. It's constant, like your FTE count just scales directly with revenue. So slowing the scale would be definitely dream state. Like if you could continue to grow your business without having to grow your team at the same speed, that would be massively dream state, because hiring is hard. Like it's hard. Like if people are, and don't get me wrong, I do love working with people and having like I love work. We work in an office. We're not remote or anything. And I really love our team, but man, it's a hard process, like going through the recruitment. It's expensive. If we could just slow that down, that would definitely be a dream state. If AI or some sort of technology could be looking at things while I'm, out and about, like, and I could be, like getting insights condensed down to me in an easily digestible format for me to go and take some actions on, reduce the number of hours again, time for money, like not just scaling the team, but personally my hours, and I'm sure for a lot of CFOs, people who are senior in an accounting firm, you're putting in the hours, right? Like we do. If you are someone who's really good at your job, you probably take a lot of pride in your work, and you'll make sure you work extra to get a good result. And if you could get that without the hours, that would also be a dream state.
So that's kind of making the current offerings more profitable, disconnecting human capital from growth, so you can kind of you can continue to grow without that overhead. What new revenue streams do you think AI may be able to unlock, for firms like yours?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think for more traditional firms as well, it probably unlocks even more than it would unlock for something like Oxygen. Probably, like if you think about the classic accounting firm, you can then like if you've got all this processing power behind you now, you don't need to scale out a whole new team to deliver a new service. Like maybe AI can do it for you. Maybe advisory can be done. A lot of the heavy lifting can be done by a piece of technology. Yeah, I imagine it's hard to even quantify what it would be, but I imagine there'd be plenty of opportunity, like a lot more insights, and then like things that just do a better job than humans can do today. Like if you think about, for us, we do bookkeeping, and so we're chasing receivables. Like it's not a good process for us to be doing. We don't. The client knows exactly what's happening with the customer. We don't really have the full context being an outsourced provider. And so, yeah, we might chase, like, they might have been said to the customer, oh, don't worry about paying the bills. We know you're in a tight spot. And then we chase them that same day with being like, you have one day to pay this invoice or we're going to start charging you penalty interest. They're getting two different messages. Seems like if you could do a better job, like probably AI could do a better job of that than we can for a fraction of the cost. And you could, as a firm, you could probably just be selling that product. And again, you're not selling time for money. You're actually selling a product that you can just take a margin on, which
is interesting, right? So, accountants, virtual CFOs are used to money for hours. Do you think there's going to be a challenge on the business model for people to go, actually, we can just put some margin on selling a product or product as a service, right? So how do you think accountants specifically who have been working the same business model for time immemorial, how do you think that transition into a mixture of billable time versus product and technology, how do you think that's going to go down?
Yeah, it's hard because you don't want, I think for me, even we're trying to make sure our clients are still getting really good value. Like that's what we wouldn't want to do, is just charge for something that we are getting exorbitant margins on, because we'll probably get competed out really quickly if we do that. So how can you still make it super value add for your customer? But on the flip side, like as we're hiring like the next generations coming through and we're hiring them, they're getting stronger, and probably it's somewhat, sometimes as an employer or a boss, you're like, it frustrates you, but probably to their credit, they're a bit stronger on like, yeah, I'm not going to work till 9 p.m. to get this thing done every single night. I'm just going to leave at, a reasonable time and do it tomorrow. So to actually keep up with modern expectations, I think you have to adopt it. Otherwise, you're gonna be in an undesirable place to work. You'll have a hard time recruiting staff, so you won't get good people. And kind of the cycle continues.
Yeah, that's what's sustainable. Fair enough, we've got the current generation of whatever, the next generation's got different expectations. The technology is moving really, really quickly. I guess then to kind of wrap up, what would be the top 3 things that the message that you'd give to accountants and even to small businesses about AI and this new technology landscape in the financial context? What are the top tips that you give to these business owners, execs, or accountants?
Yeah, I mean, keep yourself informed. That's what I'm doing, is trying to talk to people who are really, like, I'm not an AI expert, don't profess to be one, and I'm reasonably I adapt reasonably well with technology, but I'm not like the most tech-led person, the earliest adopter. But there are people you can just talk to, people who are experts in the space. Go to you're listening to this podcast, so that's a good start, right? Like go and take an interest in the space, because if you don't keep up with it, you'll just fall behind. And if you don't know what's been happening for the last, I don't know, like 3 years in the space, and you haven't kept up with it, it's going to be a very big mountain to climb at that point to educate yourself. Whereas if you educate yourself as it goes, have a rough understanding of even just the jargon, like what people are talking about in the space, it allows you to be part of the conversation. So that'd be my big piece of advice. Just keep up, learn with it, and test some stuff. Like, why not give it a try? Like, just try a product. You don't have to roll it across every single client. You can try it with one, pilot it with a client, and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then cool, you probably haven't lost much. Like, I'm sure an AI startup is going to give you a good deal to try and get you to use their product. And if it does work, then win, right? Like, because if you adopt this faster than anyone else, you've got this window where people are going to be like, how are you able to do this at this price technology is allowing you to do it, and you'll outcompete everyone and hopefully grow off the back of it.
Maybe that will make the dinner party conversation a bit more interesting as well.
Yeah, when you talk about AI and accounting.
Yeah. How can people get hold of you if they're an accountant or virtual CFO that wants to kind of pick your brains on some stuff, whether in New Zealand or elsewhere, what's their best way to get to you?
Yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn, or if you go to the oxygenadvisors.co.nz website, you'll be able to, there's a get in touch section, and just flick us an inquiry. Love to hear from people, even if it's, it doesn't necessarily need to be a potential client. If people are just interested in talking to us, if anyone's looking for a job, we're always hiring. Love to hear from anyone interested in the space.
Cool. Awesome. And then finally, put you on the spot, what's your best accountant joke?
Best accountant joke?
Yeah.
Oh, I think they're probably all terrible, aren't they? I honestly don't know. I don't know if there's
maybe
a good
that's
one.
An oxymoron. Maybe accountants can't tell jokes. Maybe that's the whole problem.
Okay. Probably asking for a best accountant joke is the best accountant joke.
Thanks, Mike. It's been really awesome to chat. Really appreciate the insights. Obviously, you're really forward-looking, which is fantastic. So hopefully what you've been able to share can really help people who are either beginning of the journey or getting on their journey. Again, really keen to talk to anybody in this space. So if you want to join the pod, or if you want to talk to us about AI and accounting or finance, you know where to reach us. And look forward to next time. Thanks, Mike. Much appreciated.
Awesome. Cheers.